As viewers, it's easy to watch pro players and say, man, this player just needs to stop making so many mistakes. We definitely said it ourselves in multiple videos, so we know just how easy it is to forget how difficult it can be for pros. You see, badminton pros often have to play in conditions that are far different from what your typical badminton player is used to. In these large arenas with hundreds of people watching, factors like drift, lighting, and the general higher roofs and open space can make it extremely difficult to control the shuttle. And perhaps you may have even greater respect for the pros, considering that they fly in often only a day or two before the tournament and only have a couple of hours to test court conditions before being expected to play at their best. Victor Lai versus Ayush Shetty at the 2025 Hylo Open is a phenomenal example of how playing conditions can completely shake up your game. Two theoretically closely matched players saw either one-sided losses or wins before entering a third set that Ayush Shetty ultimately won. Victor Lai was down a staggering 11-0 at the interval before losing 21-11 in the first game. Ayush Shetty had a similar story in the second, being down 10-0 before ultimately losing 21-4. So what happened? How could these games be so one-sided? The match between Victor Lai and Ayush Shetty is a prime example of how drift can completely change the game. On the court that Victor Lai and Ayush Shetty played on, there was a drift blowing from the far side of the court, toward the side closer to the camera. This drift made the side closer to the camera the better side to play on. Here's why. Generally, it is much easier for pro male players to add power to their shot versus taking away power to control their shot better, especially in the case of lifts and clears. When you're playing with the drift, shots that normally land in without a drift can often go out, and adjusting your power takes a great deal of skill. This is why both Ayush Shetty and Victor Lai struggled heavily when playing with the drift, where they made a significant number of what seemed like unforced errors. But even if you were able to control your lifts and clears well enough to keep the shuttle inbounds, there's an even bigger problem to consider. Adjusting your power lower often means slowing down your racket swing and shot speed. And when you slow down your shot and swing, you make it much easier for your opponent to react to the shuttle and attack. Comparatively, when you're playing against the drift, you can actually speed up your swing and increase your shot speed without the shuttle landing out. This makes it extremely difficult for your opponent to react and requires them to move faster. That's why despite many of the lifts not reaching the full court's length when played against the drift, these pros still often end up taking more neutral shots, like a late forehand or backhand. There were several instances as well where the player playing with the drift would often misjudge the lift. The fast shot speed can make it seem like the shuttle was going out, but the drift ultimately keeps it in. So, what can you do if you play in these drifty conditions? Well, let's take a look at what Victor Lai and Ayush Shetty does. At the start of the third game, Victor Lai starts on the side playing with the drift, and Ayush Shetty starts against the drift. What you'll notice immediately is how much Victor Lai pushes the pace, trying his absolute hardest to take the net early and avoid lifting. You'll also notice that Victor often opts for cross pushes as well, given that you can play the shot with more power compared to a straight. Who we really want to highlight, though, is Ayush Shetty. In these drifty conditions, Ayush Shetty noticeably changes his play depending on the side of the court. When playing on the side against the drift, Shetty played a style where he generally played neutralizing shots in the backcourt, while putting all his attention on the net. He knows Victor Lai does not want to lift, and even if he does, the shot will be slower, because Lai needs to control the shot. Thus, he can spend more focus on watching the net, and a strategy that worked well was to block a little tighter to the net, to force Victor Lai to move the full distances on the court. When switching to the other side, Ayush Shetty then flipped his game, where he decided to block farther and put emphasis on attacking in the backcourt. The first goal was to prevent Victor from playing spin nets, as a spin makes lifts even harder to control in drifty conditions. The second goal was to be ready for what we talked about earlier, where playing against the drift allows players to hit their pushes and lifts faster without the shot going out. And indeed, Ayush Shetty was successful in accomplishing his goals and eventually won the match. Now, one thing both players should have done more was play a flatter game. There are some instances where Shetty and Victor attempted to play the drive game, but it definitely could have been used more, especially in the third game. We can take a look at how Momota and Ginting played each other at the various China Opens. The China Open venue is known to be very drifty, given how large it is, which is why we can see Momota, a player more well known for his control, initiate a lot more drives and flatter exchanges than he usually does. Both Ayush Shetty and Victor Lai could have went for drives a lot more, though it is understandable that they didn't go for it, given that those shots may not be comfortable for them. But if your drive game is good, or you have trouble controlling the shuttle in certain venues, playing a flatter game is certainly something you can go for. Not all of us will end up playing in a large drifty stadium, but there are certainly other situations that make some of the lessons from this video very important. For example, you may suddenly switch from a slower shuttle to a faster shuttle. You may end up playing on a court where a fan or vent is blowing air on your court. In these cases, you can't just complain about your situation. There are things you can do to still win, like changing your shot choice and anticipation to not get punished by external conditions. This is what separates the truly great players from the good. If you like this video, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss out on future videos. As always, let us know what you would like to see in the comments below. Thanks for watching.